Hey everyone, welcome to tonight's live stream. I am answering a question that was just asked on another video. I've got a video on here that talks about ultrasounds and goats, and somebody sounded like they were kind of excited, that they had an ultrasound done on their goat. And I told them not to count on what the vet said in terms of number of kids, because I have heard so many people on both ends of the spectrum. And like new people do this because they think, oh, how am I going to know when she's done kidding? And that sounds like that's exactly why this person did it. That is like the worst way, the absolute worst way, that is wrong more often than it's right. I had a woman contact me one time because somebody told her goat was going to have 7 babies. And she was just freaking out. The goat was a couple weeks away from kidding. And I don't usually try to guess how many kids a goat's going to have based on how it looks. But if somebody tells me their goat's having 7, I'm expecting she's going to be as big as a house. So I'm like, could you send me a picture of this goat, like from behind, so I can see how big her belly is? And I'm looking, and also this is a first freshener too. Okay. So first freshener having 7 kids, that sounds insanely far-fetched. But she sent the picture and I'm looking at it. I'm like, if that goat has twins, that is exactly what I would expect. Like that looks like the most normal pregnant belly on a goat ever. Probably twins. If she has 3, I'll be surprised, but it's possible, maybe 3 little ones or 2 big ones. And the goat had 2. Okay. And this woman was freaking out because somebody told her they saw 7 on an ultrasound. Okay. On the flip side, you have people thinking that their goat has 2 and they're like, oh, she's dead. Okay. We can go in the house. And then they come back an hour later and there's a 3rd kid there, which turns out fine. But it's just, it can be wrong in either direction. I see people guess. I think they guess too many more often, because what happens is that as soon as you move that probe, you can count a kid twice. So, it's like they move and you're like, oh no, you counted that one already. Like, that's not accurate. And with multiples, like sometimes one can be hiding behind another one. And then people think that, and they're like, oh, well, let me move over here to see. And then they think they're counting different kids, but they're not. They're like double counting 1 or more. In the case of the 7, like, oh my gosh, they were triple counting some of those kids. So anyway, the question is, how do you know when your goat is done kidding? And it's actually not that hard. This is not something that I lose sleep over. When a goat is finished kidding, there's several signs that you have. One of them is that the placenta will be hanging out, the beginning of the placenta. So my book here, Goats Giving Birth, is available through my website. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the places. And it's full of photos. And so there's a photo here at the beginning. And you see all of those membranes hanging out. That's because that was the last kid. All right. Now that's super extreme when you see that, which that could really freak some people out, especially since it looks red. They're like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. This is really scary. And it's not. That was a completely normal birth. There's nothing unusual. There's layers of membranes. And so there's nothing unusual about having, multiple sacs hanging out like that, with amniotic fluid. A small bit of blood is going to make that amniotic fluid look red. And so that scares people, and it's nothing to worry about. This goat actually, she was the 5th goat I ever bought. And she lived with us. She lived to be 16 and a half years old. She's the oldest goat ever on our farm. We retired them all at age 10. This was around her 4th or 5th kidding. If you get my book, I give you more details in there. But anyway, so this is really extreme. Normally what you see is just like some membranes. Okay. So like you notice the first kid comes out, there's nothing hanging out. The next kid comes out, there's nothing, there's nothing hanging out. But then if there's like multiple, it looks like sometimes like it might look like multiple umbilical cords, or it could look like bubbles of fluid, and that's fine. That's normal. nothing unusual about that. And then this is actually what the placenta looks like when it is out completely. So once the placenta comes out completely, it looks like this. It looks like a big piece of a membrane, and it's got, some people say they look like prunes. They should be like a very deep red or purple color if they're lighter. You don't usually see lighter ones unless there's something wrong with the kids, but I digress. Anyway, the placenta, this is what a normal placenta looks like. And then another thing too, even if you don't know about the placenta, which we didn't in the early days, but one of the things we looked for in the early days was the fact that, you know, most goat, now a goat can give birth standing up. Again, that is completely normal. First of all, let's just assume, like, you just need to go into this assuming your goat knows what to do. 95% of the time, she's going to do it. And you don't, like, everything you see is going to be normal. The textbooks, like this textbook back here, Goat Medicine, says 95% of births do not require any assistance. And I totally agree with that. We're up to 760 kids on our farm. And I would totally agree with that 5% number. If somebody is reaching in there, pulling kids all day long and thinking something's wrong all the time and freaking out all the time, they're overreacting and overdiagnosing and seeing problems where none exist and thinking that they're having to save kids that don't need to be saved. They would have been fine had they not actually been there. If the person had not been there, the kids would have been fine. And the same thing is true when it comes to, once a goat starts giving birth, she keeps giving birth. In fact, here's the really wild thing, okay? I know of 2 goats, not just one, but 2, okay? 2 goats who had a C-section and they missed a kid in the C-section. And the goat gave birth to the kid after the C-section. So in one case, it was a couple of mummified kids. In another case, it was a live kid. So the mummified kids actually came out a couple days after the C-section. Everybody was, and of course the mummified kids were dead, had been dead for many months, which is why they were mummified. They were like little hot dogs. In the other case, the goat was in labor. Basically, it was 30 minutes after the C-section. Like, they got her stitched up. 30 minutes later, the owner said that the goat was screaming bloody murder and pushed out a 3rd kid. And this can be what happens when you talk your dog vet into doing a goat C-section, because he got 2 kids out and probably thought, like, oh, goats have 2 kids, and didn't look for a 3rd one, because it was a big, healthy, normal kid that came out screaming 30 minutes after he had stitched up this goat, which it's amazing the goat survived that. In the other case, they were mummified. And so they only weighed, it was 2 kids. They weighed 2 ounces each. So they were like the size of a hot dog. And they were very, very small. So they would have been a lot easier to miss. But my point is, really the last thing you need to worry about is your goat not giving birth to all the kids that are in her belly. Okay. Because I can think of one person I know who lost a doe because she had a retained kid. And whereas I know 2 people who had a goat that had a C-section. And then after she got stitched up, she pushed out more kids. So that tells me the goat knows more than people do. And I've actually even had like vets and vet professors say that too. You know, it's like the goat's body knows what to do, and most people just worry way too much. And that is definitely the case with the placenta. Now, you're going to see, once she's done with the last kid, you do see some membranes hanging out. But the other thing is that they're not going to come out right away. So like if you've had a human baby, you know, the placenta comes out within half an hour. So with goats, normal is more like 2 to 3 hours. So do not under any circumstances pull on that placenta, because you can cause a hemorrhage. If it does not come out, you leave it alone. That is a topic for another video. We actually have a whole podcast on the placenta, talking about, like, it could actually take a week for the placenta to come out. And even in those cases, you still do not pull on it. And why? Because the ruminant placenta, as you saw from that photo, the ruminant placenta is very, very different from a human placenta. And so what gets done with a human placenta is very different than what gets done with a goat placenta. So we've got that podcast. The book is available. Like I said, anywhere you like to buy books, they can order it for you. I've got a traditional publisher. So there's a nationwide distributor that sends it to bookstores and stuff. And we also have a course, and the link is in the description. Wherever the description is, the link is in the description where you can sign up for the free kidding course. And that's it. If you've got any more, the other big thing I was going to say too, the thing that we always, the way we always knew in the early days when our goats were done kidding before we knew about the placenta, was because usually when they're in the middle of labor, they're going to be laying down 95% of the time. Sometimes maybe 5% of the time they'll be standing. That doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. It's fine. Don't try to force her to lay down. Please don't try to force your goat to do stuff when she's in labor. Just let her do what she needs to do. So anyway, if the goat, but the thing is that when she's in labor, she's like pushing and stuff. And then usually they are laying down. And so if they're laying down, that makes it very easy for you, because once they're done, they're up. And that's the thing that is just amazing to me is sometimes it's like the second that kid is out, they're on their feet, they spin around, they're licking it and stuff, cleaning it up. If it's a first freshener, that may not happen as much. A lot of times your first fresheners are kind of clueless. They don't really know what's going on. So they might not be as fast. They might be like, what's that? What just happened? But the experienced moms usually are pretty quick to jump up and turn around. And if there's more, then they're going to lay down again and keep licking. They may not even stand up. They may just do what they need to do to get to the kid to clean it. But then once they get up and they go to the water bucket and drink water and start eating hay and grain and all that kind of stuff, once they start eating and acting completely normal, then that's another good sign too that they're done. So hope that this has been helpful for you. That free course that we have, the free video course we have, shows you more stuff, because this is a case where a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth a lot too. I really do not recommend videos on YouTube, because there's some good ones, yeah, but if you don't know you don't know what you don't know. And so there is a chance that most of the videos on YouTube for birthing show a lot more intervention than they really should have. So that is not the best place, because you don't know which one. You're like, I don't know if that one's good or not. And there's a lot of stuff on there that is just very inaccurate, because some people, like, they have their first goat birth and they put it on YouTube, or even their 10th or their 20th, they still are not real clued in. In fact, I can tell you, after doing this for 22 years and having 760 kids, I was still learning a ton until we were over 200 or 300 kids. Like, there's just so many little nuances, so many different ways that normal can present itself in a goat birth that somebody might be worried about if they don't realize that that's normal. So hope this has been helpful for you, and that you can look at some of these other resources I provided you to give you more information. Bye for now.